The cool evening air brushed against my skin as I sat in the backyard, lost in thought. The gentle bubbling of the hot tub nearby provided a soothing backdrop to the unusual quiet of the house. Normally, the place would be buzzing with activity, especially when Lisa, my stepmother, threw one of her famous parties. But tonight it was just me savoring a glass of wine I'd snuck from the fridge. I'm Jake, by the way, 22, fresh out of college and living at home while I figure out but it has its advantages, such as quiet evenings like this one, or so I thought. The sound of the sliding door opening broke through my reverie. I turned to see Lisa step out, followed by a couple of her friends, all giggling softly, drinks in hand, clearly in high spirits. It didn't take long for them to notice me. "Jake, what are you doing out here all alone?" Lisa called out, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness that I'd grown accustomed to over the years. I shrugged, unsure how to respond. I hadn't expected company, especially not hers. As they approached, I noticed they were all wearing bikinis. Under their robes, it was clear they had plans to use the hot tub. One of Lisa's friends, Megan, smiled at me. "You should join us," she suggested, her tone light and teasing. Before I could respond, Lisa was beside me, plucking the wine glass from my hand, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she said, "Come on, don't be shy. The water's perfect." Tonight I hesitated, feeling a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. Something about the way they were all looking at me made it hard to say no. After a moment's pause, I found myself nodding and standing up. Megan and Lisa's other friend Sarah, whom I remembered, giggled as they slipped out of their robes and climbed into the warm water. Their laughter filled the night air, infectious and inviting. I stood by the edge for a second, still feeling a bit out of place. Lisa gave me, "The water is fine," she said with a wink. Unable to resist any longer, I stepped into the hot tub. The warm water enveloped me, instantly soothing away a tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I settled into my spot, acutely aware of Lisa's presence beside me. "Relax," Sarah said, her voice soft and encouraging. "We're all here to have a good time." Lisa handed me another glass of wine, her fingers brushing against mine for just a moment longer than necessary. I wasn't sure if it was the warmth of the water, the alcohol, or the company, but I started to feel more at ease. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and playful splashing, but beneath it all there was an undercurrent of tension that I couldn't quite ignore. Every now and then I'd catch one of them looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. As the minutes ticked by, I noticed Lisa moving closer to me. Her shoulder was now gently pressing against mine as she spoke, and her hand would occasionally rest on my arm. Lingering there, I tried to play it cool, but I could feel my heart racing. Megan and Sarah were watching us, their smiles seeming to dare me to make a move, but I stayed still, unsure of where this was all going. The atmosphere had shifted, becoming charged with an energy I couldn't quite name. Lisa leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear as she whispered, "You seem tense, Jake. Why? Don't you want us to help you relax her?" Words sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Megan and Sarah, who were now moving closer, had their eyes locked on each other. Megan smiled, her lips curving in a way that made my stomach flip. The combination of the warm water and the wine and their closeness was making everything feel hazy. Lisa's lips brushed against my cheek, teasing and playful. Megan and Sarah giggled softly, and I could feel the tension building with every passing second. It was as if the world outside had ceased. Lisa's hand slid down my arm, her touch more deliberate now. It was clear this wasn't just innocent fun anymore. Megan and Sarah seemed to be in on it as well, their gazes lingering, their laughter soft and inviting. I couldn't think straight as Lisa's next whisper hung in the air. "We've been waiting for this, you know." She murmured her words, leaving me breathless. The water swirled around us, warm and inviting, but it was nothing compared to the heat building between Lisa's lips, which softened my neck. Megan and Sarah were also close now, their hands exploring their lips and occasionally brushing my skin. I felt completely surrounded everywhere. I turned. There was a soft touch, a warm body pressing closer. It was almost overwhelming, but in the best possible way. Megan leaned in, her hands sliding up my chest as she kissed me. Her lips were gentle but firm, and I couldn't help but kiss her back, my hands finding their way to her waist almost of their own accord. Sarah was there too, her fingers tracing down my arm, her lips brushing against my jaw. "You deserve this," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine with a question. My voice was low and sultry, and I couldn't find the words to respond to her. All I could do was nod, my heart racing. Her lips met mine in a slow, lingering kiss. As the kiss deepened, I felt Lisa's hand on my thigh, moving with understanding of her intent. I purposefully shifted to help her and soon found myself free of my swimwear. The sensation of the warm water against my bare skin was exhilarating. Taking a deep breath, I decided to take the next step. With my hands finding Lisa's body and gently moving, I helped her out of her swimsuit. Megan and Sarah quickly followed suit, and soon we were all naked. In the bubbling water, I couldn't help but admire their bodies, each beautiful in their own way. Lisa's curves, Megan's toned physique, Sarah's gracefulness. It was almost too much to take in. What followed was a blur of sensations. Soft skin, warm water, and gentle touches that grew bolder with each passing moment. I found myself tasting, touching, and exploring first Lisa, then Megan, then Sarah, each experience unique, each moment burning itself into my memory. At one point, I stood up, the cool night air a stark contrast to the warm water. Lisa and Megan moved closer to me. Their attention focused on me in a way that made my head spin. The dual sensation of their mouths was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. The intensity built until I couldn't just smile as they sat there enjoying the warm water. It felt like the rush of excitement had passed, and we were all just soaking in the afterglow of the moment. After a while, Lisa sighed, giving me a soft, "That was fun," she said quietly. KL, Megan and Sarah nodded in agreement at their playful smiles, but everything felt a little more peaceful as they slowly got out of the hot tub, wrapping themselves in towels and giggling quietly as they headed back inside. Lisa was the last to leave, giving me one last look over her shoulder at her twinkling eyes. "Jake," softly before disappearing inside with her friends. I remained in the hot tub for a little longer, allowing the warm water to soothe me. My heart was still racing, but I knew everything had come to an end. The night had been unexpectedly intense and unforgettable, and as I leaned back and closed my eyes, I couldn't help but smile to myself. Things would never be the same after tonight, and I found myself both nervous and excited about what the future might hold. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a summer that would change everything. I awoke the next morning with a slight headache and a flood of memories from the night before. For a moment I wondered if it had all been a dream. The hot tub, Lisa, Megan, and Sarah. It seemed too unreal to have actually happened, but as I became more alert, I knew it had been real, very real. The house was quiet. As I made my way downstairs, I half expected to find Lisa in the kitchen, but it was empty. A note on the counter caught my eye: "Out for brunch with the girls. Be back later." I breathed the sigh of relief. I wasn't quite ready to face Lisa, yet I needed time to process everything that had happened. As I sipped my coffee, my mind wandered back to the events of last night. The way Lisa had looked at me, the feeling of Megan's lips on mine, Sarah's soft touch. It was all so vivid, but now in the harsh light of day I felt a twinge of guilt. Lisa was my after all, and Megan and Sarah were her friends. What had I gotten myself into? The sound of the front door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. Lisa walked in looking fresh and relaxed. When she saw me, she smiled, but there was something else in her eyes. Nervousness. Excitement. "Morning," she said casually. "Sleep well?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Lisa busied herself making a cup of tea, the silence between us growing thicker by the second, until she turned to face me. "About last night," she began, and my heart rate spiked. "I hope you don't feel uncomfortable." I shook my head. "I'm not uncomfortable, just surprised," and Lisa's smile softened. "It wasn't planned. If that's what you're thinking, it just happened." We talked for a while to clear the air, and Lisa assured me that Megan and Sarah were discreet and that what happened in the hot tub would remain between us. She also made it clear that, while she didn't regret what happened, she understood if I wanted to pretend it never occurred. But did I want to pretend it never happened? As the days passed, I found myself thinking about that night more and more. The way Lisa had touched me, the sounds Megan had made, the taste of Sarah's lips. It was all seared into my memory. A week went by, and things seemed to return to normal. Lisa and I fell back into our usual routine with no mention of that night. But there was an undercurrent of tension now, a charged energy that hadn't been there before. "Can we speak?" I nodded, closing my laptop as she came in and sat on the edge of my bed. She was wearing a silky robe, and I couldn't help but remember how she'd looked that night in the hot tub I'd been thinking about. She said, her voice low, about that night, and I was wondering if maybe you'd like to explore things a bit more in my heart. It started racing. "What do you mean?" I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Lisa moved closer, her hand resting on my knee. "If you're comfortable with it, we're just the two of us this time." Knew I should say no because this was my stepmother after all. But the memory of her touch, the look in her eyes, it was too much to bear. "Okay," I heard myself say, "let's see where." This is how it went. Lisa and I spent the night exploring and discovering each other's bodies, finding out what made the other gasp and moan. It was different. Lisa traced patterns on my well. "This changes things," she murmured, moving from the frenzy of the hot tub night to the slower, more intimate as we lay together. Nodded, realizing she was correct. Our relationship had changed, and there was no going back. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and I settled into a new routine. We maintained our normal stepmother steps during the day, but at night, behind closed doors, we explored this new facet of our connection. It wasn't just physical, though. We talked about shared things that we had never discussed before. I learned about her past, her dreams, and her fears, and she listened. As I talked about my future uncertainties, ambitions, and insecurities one night as we lay tangled together, Lisa propped herself up on an elbow and looked at me. "I need to ask you something, Jake." I responded with curiosity to something she said in her hesitant tone. "About her sudden seriousness. How would you feel about including others?" Sometimes I blinked surprised, like Megan and Sarah. Lisa nodded. "They've been asking about you." I took a moment to consider the idea, which was certainly exciting, but I also felt a twinge of jealousy at the thought of sharing. "We don't have to," Lisa said. I quickly realized my hesitation. "I'm fine with just the two of us, but variety can be enjoyable at times." I pulled her closer. "Leighton tried it with a deep kiss," I said, "when we finally broke apart, but you're always my number one." Lisa's smile was radiant in your mind. She whispered the next weekend, Megan and Sarah came over for what Lisa called a private party. The nervous energy from that first night was gone, replaced by excited anticipation. We started in the living room, music playing softly in the background as we sipped wine and flirted. It wasn't long before clothes started coming off and hands began to wander. This time, I was more confident and more in control. I took charge, guiding the women to the bedroom, where we spent hours exploring and praising each other in every combination imaginable. As the night wore on, I found myself marveling at how different each woman was. Lisa is passionate and intense, Megan was playful and adventurous, and Sarah was gentle and sensual. Together, they created an experience that was beyond anything I could have imagined. In the quiet, as I looked at Lisa's eyes, meeting mine with a mix of love and desire, I knew I wouldn't change a thing. The weeks turned into months, and our unconventional arrangement continued. Lisa and I remained the core of our connection, growing stronger with each passing day. Megan and Sarah joined us occasionally, always bringing a spark of excitement and novelty, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of jealousy, doubt, and fear. What if someone found out? What if one of us developed stronger feelings for someone else? We had to navigate these choppy waters carefully, always communicating openly and honestly. One particularly memorable night, after Megan and Sarah had left, Lisa and I were cuddling on the couch. She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Jake, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart skipped a beat. She was about to end things. "I think I'm falling in love with you," she whispered, relief flooding through me, followed quickly by a surge of emotion. "Lisa," I said, cupping her face